everyone. Thank you for listening to Communicate 101 Speaking Writing Tips, your podcast channel for effective communication skills. And I'm your host, Sarika Singh. On this podcast, I talk to you about becoming an effective communicator in life, be it branding, communications, how to pitch to clients, creative writing skills, how to speak, when to speak, tips to avoid and handle those goof-ups, how to break the ice and start conversations, and everything around this topic that walks through my mind. This episode begins.
A lot of people come to me because they want to become confident speakers. They want to speak smooth like butter. They feel speaking is one of the most powerful communication skills. But today we are going to talk about the most powerful communication skill, which is also the most underrated one. Believe you me, it is not speaking. It is actually listening. You heard me right, it's listening. I know it's not as flashy as being a smooth talker or an eloquent speaker, but let me tell you, if you're a great speaker, it's a total game changer in your personal life or your professional life. Welcome back to another episode of Communicate 101 Speaking Writing Tips, your go-to podcast for all things communication. Today, in fact, I'm going to make a bold promise to you. By the end of this particular episode, you will have the tools to instantly improve your listening skills by practicing just 10 minutes every day. Just 10 minutes. Why only 10 minutes? Because obviously you don't have time to work for hours every day, right? And to make this fun, we are going to learn this skill by practicing, by playing a little game. So stay tuned, grab a cup of coffee. If you don't have coffee, have tea. I won't judge, although I'm a coffee lover. Grab that notepad and pen for better absorption. And let's together unlock the secrets of the listening mastery. And stay tuned right until the end of this episode because there's a master hack waiting to be served as a dessert, a very delectable dessert, a secret hack which is hidden at the end of this podcast episode. Let's roll. We live in a world full of distractions. Your phone is buzzing, you've got emails coming in, and of course Netflix is begging for your attention. But multitasking, much as we are all doing it all the time, is actually the enemy of good listening. So when you're talking to someone or someone is talking to you, don't multitask. It's a non-negotiable rule. End of story, period. Now thinking that you're not going to multitask, I'm going to share the tips, the tricks that we talked about. But before we dive into those strategies, let's understand the why. Because if you know the why, you'll realize it's way more important than you thought it is. So why is listening so important? Think about the last conversation you had with someone where you felt truly heard. You felt the other person was paying you full attention and heard every word that you spoke. Like the person you were talking to wasn't just nodding, wasn't just waiting for their turn to speak. They were really tuned in. Now, did you think of that conversation? How did it make you feel then? Didn't you feel appreciated? You felt understood and valued, right? Now flip that around. How often have you or we given that level of attention to others? How many times do we make them feel appreciated and understood and valued by listening to them? Ask yourself honestly. You will understand why we need to become better listeners. Most of us, and I include myself in this, we're often distracted or we are half listening. And we miss out on so much because of this. We're texting someone when they're telling us about their day, or we're thinking about what we're going to say the minute they finish. And that's not all. We don't listen well and we miss the cues, we misunderstand, and worst of all, we lose connections. How many times has your wife or husband said, "तुम्हें तो बात सुनने का time नहीं है"? That means you don't have time to hear anything. That's when, like I said, we lose connection. Let me share a quick story from my early coaching days. A client once came to me with an issue. His issue is the one I've handled over and over again in my coaching journey because the problem is so universal. So Vikas Baranwal, and I'm using my client's name with his permission, he had taken over family business when his father, who was, coming of age and having health issues, so he'd taken over the family business. Now Vikas had a major problem. His staff was not accepting him. They were used to his father. His staff, his team wasn't responding well to his ideas. Vikas was educated from a top Ivy League college. He knew his subject well, but he found that his team was not responding well to the ideas. They were not receptive. He felt ignored, he was frustrated, and honestly, a little defeated. His dad had been one of my mentors, so Vikas requested me to pitch in. It was a privilege, anything for my guru. I sat in on a meeting that Vikas was having with his team, and I just observed. I sat through more meetings, more discussions, just to reconfirm that the problem that I was seeing, which was staring me in the face, was the problem. It wasn't that Vikas's ideas weren't good. Also, not that the staff wasn't giving the new boss a chance. No, they were. Of course, his benchmark was high because his dad was a master at what he did, but the team was genuinely trying to support Vikas. But they felt disconnected. Now let me tell you what the real problem was. So when Vikas spoke, he was so focused on what he was saying, he didn't listen to the team's feedback. He was missing their cues, their body language, their tone, their hesitation. And the team was practically shouting, "We don't understand this. We have concerns." But Vikas did not receive that feedback. The result? There was a massive communication breakdown. Of course, once the diagnosis was done, the remedy was not so much of a challenge. I trained him on his listening skills, and believe you me, once he started to really listen, everything changed. His team felt heard, ideas flowed, and the whole dynamic shifted. That's the power of listening. Look around and ask yourself, is there someone with whom you never felt connected? Or you always ended up having an argument with that person? Whenever you talk to him, you fight. Do you think the reason could be that he feels you never listen to him? Or you feel he never listens to you? Think of that situation and honestly answer yourself. All right, everyone, I keep my promises. I promise that we'll play a game to master listening. So double up your energy. Note this trick down in your notepad because it's a simple game, super simple and fun, and you can play it with a friend, a family member, or colleague after this episode, and you'll find it extremely, extremely effective. Couples love it, parents love it with their children, subordinates love it with their bosses because each one feels, he doesn't ever listen to me. So the first thing, find a conversation partner. It could be anyone that you regularly chat with. Could be your spouse, could be your best friend, your co-worker. Now, once you've found a conversation partner, for 10 minutes, ask that person to speak. You are not allowed to interrupt. You're not allowed to offer any advice or jump in with your stories. Only the other person has to speak. You just have to listen. Now here's where the fun begins. This is the most important part. At the end of the 10 minutes, what you need to do is summarize what they said. When they spoke for 10 minutes, they said something. Now you're going to summarize what they said, but in your own words. They will confirm if you got it all right, accurate, and in the same spirit. If you got it all right, you're becoming a better listener. Most people, most of us, we think we are great listeners until we actually try this exercise. You'll be amazed how hard it is to be fully present without your mind wandering, without jumping into conclusions, without adding your expert advice or thoughts. But that's okay. This game is a game changer. I've done this exercise with clients who thought they were master listeners only to realize halfway through that they were zoning out or they were preparing their next line. But you know what? That's the point. Awareness is step 1. Once you catch yourself, you can correct it. Trust me, this exercise works like magic in improving your listening. So, find a conversation partner, let them speak uninterrupted for 10 minutes, and after that, summarize in your own words what they said in the same spirit, and they will confirm whether you got it all right in the same spirit. So today I promised you a game that will make you master the art of listening. I gave you the game. I also promised you a hack. Game was delivered, hack is on its way. I call the hack my 3-second rule. And this is a very, very effective tool. You don't even need a partner to try this out, and you can use this in everyday conversations. Alright, so imagine you're talking to someone, right? The other person is speaking and he or she just finished speaking. You, in your mind, you're dying to say something. You immediately want to say something after they've finished. But that's where you pause. That's where you start counting backwards from the alphabet Z. That is Z, Y, X. And why do you do that? Because once you've heard them, you need time to process what they said, to actually absorb what they said instead of immediately reacting. And notice, I did not say count backwards from 3 to 1 because we know it verbatim. We can immediately say 3 to 1. No, we'll say Z, Y, X. Because with Z, Y, X, you will at least think what comes after Z. Okay, is it Y? Is it X? It's not like 3 to 1. Alright? So it's the conversation equivalent of taking a deep breath before replying. It creates space for you to process, and sometimes those 3 seconds that you take to say Z, Y, X, within those 3 seconds you might actually realize that the other person hasn't even finished talking and you were ready with your reply. Just imagine. You would have actually interrupted the conversation. Recently, I had a client, a fast-talking, fast-thinking type. He couldn't wait to jump in with his thoughts. I challenged him to implement the 3-second rule in his next team meeting, and believe you me, he noticed that his team felt more comfortable contributing, and he also found those extra seconds gave him better ideas to add to the conversation. I already mentioned in the beginning of the episode that you can't be multitasking when you're conversing with someone if you want to become an effective listener. If you want the other person to listen to what you are saying in the conversation, just turn off the notifications, boss. Put that phone away, close that extra tab on your browser. Give the person in front of you who's talking to you your full, undivided attention. I'm guilty of this myself. One time I was on the phone with a friend trying to write an email, and I completely missed the part where she told me she was moving to another city. I was so embarrassed. This was a wake-up call for me, so now I make a conscious effort to be fully present during conversations, and trust me, it makes a huge difference. Do you know why my 10-minute listening challenge game works? Because by setting a short time limit, I'm making listening a habit. I'm not making it a task. It is becoming a habit, so it's not overwhelming me. You don't have to dedicate hours to become a better listener. Just 10 minutes of focused, distraction-free listening each day can transform your communication skills. Practice the time each day whenever you know you'll have a conversation. Try it with different people. Maybe over dinner with your partner, maybe at a meeting in office, your staff, your child. But for those 10 minutes, commit to giving the other person your full attention. No interruptions, no distractions, just listen. If your son told you he was getting bullied every day by a boy in school and today he handled it well, make sure you actually hear him. Make sure you actually listen to him. Make sure he hears from you, "Oh, this is amazing that you gathered the courage and today you did not let that boy bully you in the playground." Notice a statement like this is going to make a major shift in your connection with your son when he realizes you were actually listening. Whether it's practicing the 3-second rule, eliminating distractions, or diving into my listening challenge, I hope my master trick will help you level up your communication game. If you loved it, you'll also love my Insta handle, which is #communicate101, because I share tons of tips and tricks there, and they're all practical, tried and tested, and super effective. Remember, the key to becoming a great listener is never about spending hours in training. It's about making small, consistent efforts to be present and engaged in your conversations. Happy listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Communicate 101 Speaking Writing Tips with Sarika Singh. If you want to be notified of upcoming episodes, be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow the podcast. I'll be back to share more stories, more life experiences, and more communication tips every Friday. If you want to reach me or connect with me, just put your comments in the comment box below or mail me at info@sarikasingh.in. I know you're going to rate and review this podcast, so a big thank you in advance. Stay tuned and think about what we talked today.